Good morning. I've already been travelling over an hour to get here. I don't actually live in London, but we're back in London to do some mudlarking after a couple of years of not being able to go, so it's quite exciting. How far would you travel to pick up a bit of history, a bit of London's history? I'm at the moment in the city, the square mile, that is the bit of London that is contained within the old Roman walls. And at the moment I'm standing just in Upper Thames Street here. This is actually where the Roman foreshore was, but it's obviously not where the foreshore is now, because as you can see, so the current foreshore is at the end of this road, so that's where we're going. We're going to access the foreshore from these steps here. Let's just have a look at what equipment we might need. So we have our boots, we have a couple of bags, one for fines, one for plastics, because we're okay to take any plastics off the foreshore that we find, and most importantly, we have our permit, of course. Remember, there is no searching on the foreshore without a permit. So here we are, standing on the foreshore. There we go. We'll have a closer look at it in a moment. A bit windy, sorry about the hair. Now my particular interest today is in pottery. You probably know I'm a bit of a pottery fan, so I'll be looking for some pottery that will add to my collection, or shed some light on the ways that pottery was produced and used in London in past years. Not to say that I won't be picking up any small metal finds if I see them, but I won't be on my hands and knees in detail looking for the small metal stuff. If I chanced upon a Saxon coin, like several people have recently, then I'll probably pick it up, to be honest. I'm not just interested in pottery. So here's a random bit of foreshore. Obviously along the Thames, the foreshore varies a lot. Some places more muddy, some places not. But you see you've got a lot of stones, bits of brick and tile, bone, shells, old pottery, some nice bits of chalk there, some old tyres, a huge mixture. Now none of this is in situ. It's all been redeposited during building works and embankment. So we're not talking about pristine archaeology here. It's all been redeposited from elsewhere in the city. There are obviously parts of the Thames where original archaeology is eroding from the banks, but I don't think there'll be much of that in this area. Here's our first find. So we see a bit of transfer printed earthenware. Transfer printing coming in the 18th century. Obviously hugely used in the 19th century and in the 20th century. So Georgian or Victorian, the edge of a plate here. Nestling against this tyre, there's a little foot here. There we are, lovely yellow glaze, white firing clay, and it's the foot of a pipkin, which is a three-legged vessel for cooking. You can see it's got some sooting there from where it's been used cooking in the fire. This is probably the boardware industry, which is 1550 to 1700. Beautiful clear glaze which fires yellow in the kiln. And that's a lovely little object. So you can imagine some family in London in the 16th or 17th century putting that in the fire and cooking their food from it many years ago. So a nice link with history there, and just resting on top of a 20th century, 21st century tyre. This is a piece of floor tile. You can tell because it's got a slight angle to the edge there where it would be set in mortar. It's not decorated, so there's no idea of age. Could be anything from medieval, post-medieval. This little bit of clay, some interesting aspects to it. Again, it's post-medieval redware, but you can see it's got a very grey core where the red clay has not been fired to a very high temperature in the kiln. It's also got a little foot there, maybe one of three, which has been squeezed out by the finger and the thumb of the potter to make it stable wherever it's standing. So those two features tell me that it's a bit earlier in the series of post-medieval redware, or even late medieval possibly. So this is probably going to be from the Tudor period, 16th century. So there's bits of bone here. Some of them at first sight might look like a bit of pottery, but you can normally tell by the structure of the blood vessels inside and the fact that it's a lot lighter than pottery. Obviously some bone is worth picking up. There's some worked bone and there's some decorated bone such as handles and things like that, which we'll be looking for as well. It'd be nice to find one of those. Just picked up the first piece of tin glazed earthenware, otherwise known as Delft. Oh dear, just dropped it again. Oh dear, terrible. This is an earthenware body with a tin glaze, and often decorated like this piece with painted blue stripes and dots, glazed inside as well. The glaze is very fragile, which often means it chips at the edges, is not in very good condition. It's nearly come off the front of this piece here. This is probably going to be from a drug jar or an ointment pot, something like that, with a very simple blue and white decoration. This would date from about 1650 to 1750, maybe a little later. Roof tiles will have obviously holes for the nails in them, either just crudely pushed through or bored through. Very common finds, obviously, very difficult to date. Medieval, post-medieval, who is to say? Black glazed pottery. You can see the throwing lines, so it's been hand thrown on red clay. These wares were made in the Midlands, especially black glazed, from the late medieval period and the early post-medieval period. So there's a lot of interesting pottery around here, and I've literally only walked a couple of feet from the steps. Look at this lovely bit of clay spotted here, glazed inside, post-medieval redware. You can see how the base of the exterior has been sooted through standing in a fire, and it's got these wonderful little pinched frills around the end to help it have stability as it sits there being cooked on. This is also stoneware, but much later. This is the base and side of probably a ginger beer bottle. So this would be Victorian from the 1830s on right through into the 20th century, up to about the 1940s. I think they were still producing these. A tiny bit, which is probably Delft, tin glazed earthenware, but polychrome, so the glazing in different colours, bluish and yellowish there. Pity it's not a larger piece. This bit is going to be late Georgian or Victorian. I'm not sure what it is really, maybe it's a lid or something like that. But it's got a nice bit of decoration there, which might be mocha, in that it's got that sort of dendritic effect, you know, like a little tree effect that they've made by putting a solution onto the glaze which spread out there. So that's interesting. I've just noticed this bit here, that is a lovely rim from a medieval pot, probably a cooking pot. The medieval rims got a very squarish profile as opposed to Roman rims, which are round. But again, you can see the Surrey whiteware fabric, so it's a buff coloured clay with lots of inclusions, little bits speckled in it. So this will date from about 1350 to 1500 there, so a nice little bit of cooking pot rim